In order to evaluate rule sets as a pair or a group to be used simultaneously, it will be important to discover each rule set's most fundamental axioms that allow thought within that system to remain self-consistent. An axiom is any premise or postulate that is held to be true though cannot be proven by the system itself. It is the foundation, the bowl that holds the rest of the philosophy together. And any rule set, any philosophy necessarily will have some of these axioms in order to function. If the axiom of one system outright denies the validity of the axiom of another system, then only in this case are the rule sets incompatible. It is common to think that if conclusions aren't the same, then the philosophies are incompatible, but this is not the case. If two such rule sets share the same axioms, then it is more likely the two are considering some factors that the other is not, or has given less importance to. Finding axioms can be fairly difficult. They are often unstated, more often not realized by the creators of philosophical systems. And, beyond my old expectations, axioms are rather numerous and mundane. In order to have a practical, functional, analytical system that we can employ in day-to-day conversation, the number of factors need to be a manageable number. Thus, it becomes necessary to find the axiom that is most central, most fundamental to the idea. The way to do this requires first identifying the primary conclusion. The primary conclusion is the first idea that a system holds as true and states such that when another factor is introduced, a deduction or inductive conclusion can be drawn. Recurrent and successive deductions such as these eventually draw out the entire rule set of a system. Primary conclusions tend not to manifest out of nothing. A person's experiences and exposure to the world, their intuitions, and their education all contribute to what people devote their interests to. Finding that primary conclusion is therefore helpful for narrowing down the scope to what axiom is central to the system. Let's take essentialism as an example. The primary conclusion of all essentialist systems is that everything has an inherent purpose or meaning. From this, various concepts of social structures and governments arise. Ethics, which try to formulate humanity's purpose and meaning into a nature that ought to be followed, and the sciences, which rely on essences to be singular and reliably observable. It is a very basic idea that originated very early in humanity's shared engagement with the universe. If I had to wager a guess at what early man was experiencing before his primary conclusion was made, I would envision people who had near to no control over their lives. Weather, disease, food and famine, other animals, and rare phenomena in the cosmos above must have made for a very chaotic day-to-day lifestyle when compared to the sorts of lives we can craft now. Yet, in every aspect of reality that could bring a livelihood to upheaval, there were also some small consistencies that people could reliably exploit. Thus, the idea of chaos versus order was born. Eventually, as humans exploit more of this order and discover it in places they couldn't before, they think, in a world of chaos, how could anything orderly exist? Perhaps there is no chaos at all, but only a lack of knowledge, a lack of truth. Belief in order eventually becomes the belief in God. The search for order becomes the praxis of science. God does not play dice. From this myth, we see that the thought requires 1. Perception can be rejected and scrutinized. 2. Truth is external to our beliefs. And 3. The fact of the matter is in the external thing. When the perception of chaos is rejected, the belief in chaos is rejected alongside, and a new belief in truth is made firm. The question of chaos is answered with the primary conclusion of essentialism. Now let's look at essentialism's young antithesis, existentialism, to see if its axioms are truly antithetical to those of essentialism, and thus make the two philosophical schools incompatible. The key phrase that runs through all existentialists, regardless of their formulations, is that existence precedes essence. This is the primary conclusion from which all existentialists deduce their rule sets. It seeks to solve a problem that essentialism can create in certain formulations, which is not having an account for individuation, unique entities, or change over time. Yes, orderly and predictable trends can be observed everywhere, but these determined physical processes always result in individuals of any given class to be wholly distinct from any other in that class. Identical twins can have exactly the same DNA, but are always different and distinct people, right down to the fingerprints. If I have 2 copies of a video game printed onto discs, then even if we want to ascribe identical sameness to the objects, or even the data stored therein, scratching one disk won't cause the data of the other disk to match that scratch. This is because the objects, the physical manifestations, were always distinct entities. The existence of the object changed, and that caused us to change our perceived notion of the essence of the object. We assign the ordered essence to the objects once they exist in a given state. To the existentialist, we must scrutinize our perception of the associated meaning being changed externally. The truth is external to that belief, and the fact of the matter lies in the existence of the external object. In other words, existentialism operates on exactly the same axioms that formed the foundation of essentialism. 1. Perception can be rejected and scrutinized. 2. Truth is external to our beliefs. And 3. The fact of the matter is in the external thing. With identical axioms, the schools of thought are led to a different focus. One goes to the consistency and sameness of each phenomena, the other to the individuation and distinctness of each phenomena. But the 2 supposedly diametrically opposed worldviews are still true in their context while functionally coexisting. Psychology and neuroscience operate using essentialism, discovering truths about the brain and its functions for humanity as a whole. Psychiatry and therapy operate using existentialism, looking at and responding to the specific manifestations of the needs of the individuals that arrive for help and treatment. Together, these differing approaches share information freely to create a coherent field of understanding, discrete packets of knowledge and action that behave as either one or the other approach in the appropriate context. Without the understanding of use in context, the rules can collapse, and they can be rendered inert. Imagine a therapist that applied a blanket cure-all solution to every person with a similar problem that they met, or a neuroscientist who asserted that every brain was unique with no commonalities. Both would be ineffective in their roles. The way to discover these appropriate contexts for the given rule sets is by evaluating the primary conclusion. For essentialism and existentialism, I have already reviewed their primary conclusions. Essentialism is that being and meaning is orderly, consistent, and the same. Existentialism is that being and meaning is chaotic, distinct, and individuated. Identifying a primary conclusion can be difficult, but if the definition at the start of the section doesn't prove useful, having an opposed philosophy can be the tool you need. The point of divergence in opposed rule sets that share their axioms in common is usually that same point that forms the primary conclusion for the individual rule set. I hope that helps, but if you still have difficulty with this practice, please let me know. Thank you for watching, my friends. By all means, please take what I've said in this video, critique it as you will. That's the purpose for which I'm making these videos, so that I can try to develop this system more thoroughly over time. If you liked the video, please by all means hit the like button. It is the single most effective way the channel has right now to get the video in front of other potentially interested viewers. Every week I do an analysis video of some video game or anime for its philosophical merits and inspirations, so make sure you hit subscribe and the notification bell as well. Thank you as always, and remember, stay true.